And now, Move the Sticks with Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Move the Sticks. DJ Bucky here. Bucky, regular season over. Now the fun begins.
Yeah, it's win or go home time. You got to love that. Everyone loves when you see the teams play with urgency because you don't get another chance to make up for whatever you put on Saturday or Sunday. Either you advance or you pack it up.
Yeah, all right. TD, our producer, normally jumps in right about now and tells you what's coming up on the episode. We got a lot of excitement, though, a lot of stuff to cram in to our episode today. So I'm gonna push TD out. I haven't told him that yet, but he's not a part of it. I want to let the folks know that what we have coming up. Coach Billick going to join us as always. Going to talk about some of these coaching changes, and then at the end of the episode today, we're going to touch on kind of some fun bowl travel
Absolutely.
stories. Trust me, you want to stick around for that. But the meat of our show today, we're going to be looking at the playoffs, looking forward. Before we get to that part, though, Bucky, I thought we have to look backward at least a couple games that took place this last weekend, Week 17. Biggest surprise for you of the weekend?
I think the Minnesota Vikings winning on the road against the Green Bay Packers. The Packers had like a vice grip on the division. I thought the Vikings were ready to usher in a change of the guard, but for them to do it the way they did
at Lambeau,
they dominated the game for the most part. Very impressive when Mike Zimmer has his team trending in the right direction. Unfortunately, I think they may have a bad matchup in the playoffs.
Yeah, Seattle is hot as anybody right now. What they did to Arizona was definitely a statement win. One other thing to touch on real quick, Peyton Manning gets tossed into that game. Right move, wrong move?
A surprising move. I think it's a bad move because I think now that we know exactly that Peyton Manning is going in, teams that play them can prepare to take him away. He still doesn't push the ball down the field accurately. He still doesn't have necessarily the mobility to get away, and that is a poor offensive line. If I'm playing the Denver Broncos, I'm gearing up to bring a lot of pressure, and I'm going to knock him around because I just don't think he can withstand it.
I think you're going to see that field start to shrink
again
a little bit as it has in previous postseason. So, yeah, I was surprised by that move, as were you, Buck. All right, this is what I want to do today. Let's look at the playoff picture in the AFC and in the NFC, and then we're going to have some fun.
Okay.
But first, let's look at the teams that made the tournament here. 6 teams each, AFC, NFC. You look at the AFC here, 1 through 6. To me, the thing that jumps out to me a little bit, you have dominant defenses, Buck.
Dominant defenses throughout, and with the quarterback play, the suspect quarterback play that most of these teams have at the position, with the exception of the Patriots and maybe the Steelers, it could be a challenge. It'll be interesting to see who wins out, defense or offense.
Yeah, we're going to jump in deeper on the AFC in just a second, as well as the NFC. You look at the list here. At the top of the list, you've got the 2 quarterbacks that have been outstanding, and then you look at some head coaches. So, Mike Zimmer, look at guys like Jay Gruden and what he's done, and, of course, Pete Carroll down there at the bottom. This is going to be a more compelling, I think, playoff on the NFC side.
Very intriguing. The matchups would dictate who moves on, but this is a very, very interesting pool of teams to watch because I think any of these teams can make a run.
All right, now what I want to do for today is I want to lump these together. So forget AFC, NFC. Let's just put all these teams together. We've got 12 playoff teams. And let's try and rank the positions. So who would you go with? We'll go from 1 to 5, and we'll kind of go through them and just see who you would have as your top guys. I'll lead us off here as we look at the quarterbacks, Buck. And man, look, there's a lot of good quarterbacks to choose from. We've got some MVP candidates. We kind of got the new guard. We've got the old guard.
New school, old school.
So this is tough for me to kind of go through my ranking. But when I look at it, who I would want as my quarterback going into this postseason, the guy's got 4 Super Bowl rings. I got to have Tom Brady as my number 1 guy. So I'm going to stick with that. Tom Brady as my top guy. Cam Newton, the way he's rolling, running the football, throwing the football, he's going to be the MVP of this league, will be number 2. Russell Wilson, who should be along in that discussion with Cam Newton for as efficient and explosive as he's been, number 3, plus back-to-back Super Bowls. I like that. Speaking of Super Bowls, Ben Roethlisberger with his experience. Look, the numbers aren't that sexy when you look at Ben's numbers this year, but I think he's got the capability in a 3-4 game stretch to really turn it on and play well. Carson Palmer had a great year, did not play well against Seattle, but I'd have him at number 5. The one name missing from my list, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, just look, with all the issues they've had and the way his plays kind of tailed off a little bit, still an elite quarterback, Bucky. But when I look at these 5 guys, I think I would take them over him right now for this postseason.
I like your list, and I agree with your list in terms of who you include on the list. I think you got it wrong in terms of the order.
Switch the order around a little bit?
But that's fine, yeah, because Tom Brady, I don't think you can dispute it. Captain Clutch, you're talking about the ultimate winner. A guy, if the game is on the line, that's who I want to direct my 2-minute drill. he is a guy that, regardless of who he has around him, he finds a way to continue to get them to the winner's circle. With Gronk coming back, Edelman coming back, I think he's going to be a guy that positions his team to make a run. For me, second is Big Ben Roethlisberger.
You're going Ben up there, number 2.
Yeah,
huh?
I'm going to put Ben up there because I know what I get with Ben is I get Antonio Brown and Martavis Bryant and Marcus Wheaton. They come with it like it's a package deal. So I'm going to get Big Ben. I like that. Russell Wilson, for me, is 3. He's as hot as any quarterback that we've seen the second half of the year, really thriving. Look, 34 touchdown passes for a guy that started his career as a game manager. He has grown into a playmaker. This offense is explosive, is dangerous. They're turning over the keys to the offense to Russell Wilson, and you still get Marshawn Lynch back. I like that pairing. Carson Palmer, to me, is 4. Bruce Arians is going to push the ball down the field. He's going to give him a chance and let him do his deal. And then finally, I have Cam Newton at 5. And I know a lot of people will take umbrage with him being at 5, 45 total touchdowns, 35 and 10. The big thing is the wide receiver core.
It doesn't matter.
I still see
we've debated this one until we're both blue in the face.
As a one-trick pony. I know they have Greg Olsen. I know Ted Ginn Jr. is playing. But now we're about to move to the big stage. Coming to the stage, Ted Ginn and crew, I just don't know if I can buy them as a crew that's going to allow Cam to do his deal.
All right, we look at your top 5, Bucky. Obviously, you're sliding Jericho Cotchery. You didn't want what he did last week.
I did. I saw that.
Jaco doing his thing. And Funch is starting to come on a little bit. Look, Cam Newton makes everybody around him better, but here's your top 5 list. Brady Roethlisberger, Russell Wilson, Carson Palmer, and Cam Newton. So we do have the same 5 names. You didn't have Aaron. I thought I was going out on a limb not having Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers is struggling. You know, the guy who I wanted to slide in there, but the numbers don't allow me to do it.
Don't say A.J. McCarron.
No. Alex Smith.
Yeah, he's been efficient.
Alex Smith is a guy that I think, because I think the Chiefs can make a legitimate run at the Super Bowl, I think he's good enough to help them get there. I don't have the numbers to necessarily back it up, but he's playing well. He had a bad game week 17, but I think he had to get that out. We'll see him play well.
All right, let's stay in the backfield, and let's move to the running back position now, Bucky. And we look at ranking the top 5 running backs in the postseason. Now, we've got some injuries to kind of you got to figure those things out, how you feel comfortable with the health of some of these guys. But right now, I'll let you lead us off here. Your top 5 running backs, 1 to 5 in the postseason. Who you got?
You know, I'm a guy that I like brand names. You know, so if you talk about Jay-Z, I like brand names. When I go to the store, I want the thing that everyone gets. So when it comes to the running back position, I'm going to hang my hat on guys that have been there, have done it with tremendous success. So the number 1 guy for me is Adrian Peterson. 30-year-old running back, leads the league. Look, he's led for 3 years. He has been the rushing leader. I'm going with him. I think he's physical, sets the tone. He has kind of put the Vikings offense on their back, allowed everyone else to play as a complementary player. I like him. Marshawn Lynch, for me, is number 2. I know he has missed most of the second half of the season, but I actually think it's a good thing for him. He's going to be fresh going into the postseason. He only really has to play 3 really good games to get them to where they need to be. I believe Marshawn is a pivotal player. I put him right behind Adrian Peterson. Jonathan Stewart is a nice complement to Cam Newton. The way they're able to run the zone read, he's physical inside. You got that Batman Robin thing. Jonathan Stewart is good. The next 2 guys are still kind of unknown commodities in terms of what they'll do in the postseason.
You just like his name.
Charkandrick West. He has been
a
nice guy. I mean, I'll call him Kanye. He has been nice, runner receiver, explosive. The way they mix him in is good. And then David Johnson at the end.
He's a stud.
Stepped in for Chris Johnson. Look, you talk about a guy who already has 1,000 total yards from scrimmage, can do it as a receiver and a runner. I like him. That's my top 5. I feel good about those guys at the top because those are established marquee names that continue to get it done.
Well, you nailed it at the very top because Adrian Peterson, to me, is the clear number 1. Amazing he come back at his age after missing a whole season and produced the way he has this year. He's the best running back in the NFL. Once again, nothing's changed, and he is going to be the most dominant running back as we enter the postseason. He's the one running back, I think, that could put the team on his back and could actually win them a football game by himself. He's that good.
He is that good. He has a tough road to hoe against the Seattle Seahawks, but I think the big deal with Adrian Peterson is, can they get him 20-plus carries? When they get him 20-plus carries, I want to say they're 8-1. When he has 100-yard games, they're undefeated. So I want to make sure that I get him a lion's share of carries. I'm going to allow him to set the tone. I'm going to alleviate some of the pressure on Teddy Bridgewater by running the football. And I know Seattle knows that. They're going to stack the box. but I'm going to feed the beast. I'm going to make it a physical game. I'm going to try and get it in a phone booth and see if they can win that street fight.
All right, we have 4 of the 5 same names as I look down at my list here, Bucky. I have Adrian Peterson number 1 on my list. My number 2 guy, though, did not crack your top 5, and that's Jeremy Hill. You're a Hugh Jackson guy, man.
I am a Hugh Jackson guy, but he splits time. I don't get 2. I don't get a 2 for 1.
I don't need the other
get
one
the special
because I
2
can
for
give
1.
him. He can give me the power. Then you saw even last week he can still pop one. So to me, and he's going to be fresh because he's had to be able to split some carries. Going to be fresh going into the postseason. I have Jeremy Hill number 2. Marshawn Lynch. Obviously, I would have had him 1 spot higher if I was comfortable with his health. I even contemplated even not having him on the list altogether because we just don't know what we're going to see from him health-wise in the postseason. David Johnson, who I love at number 4, and Jonathan Stewart. Again, someone needs to be healthy in the postseason for the Panthers to advance. That's the way I see the top 5. Really no discussion at number 1. I think maybe you missed it not having Jeremy Hill in there. Sharkhandrick West, nice back. I'll take Jeremy Hill.
Oh, I like the way the Chiefs are playing. You talk about a team that's won 10 in a row, and I like the Cincinnati Bengals. Look, I'm an unabashed fan of the Cincinnati Bengals and what they've been doing. I think Hugh Jackson does a great job of doing a lot of tricks and creative things to get that offense going. There you see the big run from Jeremy Hill. My big issue with Jeremy Hill is he going to show up now that it's money time? Because they split the load, he and Giovanni Bernard sharing carries. They need those guys to step up, especially with a young quarterback like A.J. McCarron. They don't want to put all of that on his shoulders. So Jeremy Hill has to play good. I think with those guys, you need to have both of those guys playing at a high level. If they combine for about 120 yards, I feel good. I just don't know if Jeremy Hill is going to get enough touches unless he gets off hot.
See, you need Jeremy Hill to get those touches to take some pressure off your A.J. McCarron, make you
I think
smart.
my guy's a playmaker.
All right, let's move outside. This is the most intriguing one to me, and that's the wide receiver / tight ends. We're going to lump them together, pass catchers, when you look at the top 5 order here, Bucky. And, man, this one's difficult because we talk about the great defenses, and the stat that blew me away, 11 of the top 12 defenses and points allowed made the postseason. So that's something these playoff teams have in common. But the receiving core of a lot of these teams, these are some of the best in the league to choose from.
Yeah, you have to be able to score points. As much as I talk about defense, winning championships, and your ability to hold people out the zone being critical to winning, you have to be able to find a way to create explosive plays. And right now, the easiest way to create those explosive plays are on the perimeter, throwing the ball down the field. And so when I look at these receiver cores, I'm looking for guys that have a lot of people that can create it. I can't wait to see if we have differences in who goes first.
Can I lead us off here?
Yeah, you can.
I'm going to lead us off. All right, this one to me, again, these are all tough calls, even putting these in order. But the Steelers to me, just because Antonio Brown, what he can do, Martavis Bryant, look at Heath Miller looking a little bit young, too, down there in the red zone. You got Marcus Wheaton. You've got all kinds of weapons to throw out there in the pass game. But to me, the best receiver in the NFL, Antonio Brown, that puts them at number 1. The Bengals, A.J. Green, we've seen his toe-tapping magic over the last few weeks. He's back in a good groove. You got Mohamed Sanu. You've got Eifert, who gets included in this as a tight end, who's double-digit touchdowns. Then this next one to me was difficult, sorting out 3 and 4, because the Arizona Cardinals have that variety of weapons. They hit you with the speed guys with John Brown. They've got the size with Floyd and Fitz. They've got a variety of weapons. But the Redskins, the way Jordan Reed is dialed in, with his quarterback and Kirk Cousins, he is a true mismatch player. That was a tough call. Ended up with the Cardinals just over him. Obviously, you get Deshaun Jackson as well, Pierre Garçon, and you've got a hot quarterback with him. To me, Jordan Reed, when you just look at pure mismatch players, though, he's as good as it gets in this postseason.
He absolutely is as good as it gets. And it's funny because I think you have those guys a little low.
Really?
Absolutely.
Well, I got to get to my 5th, too. I didn't throw my – my 5th was my shocker.
I mean,
with Seattle.
Kind of. We'll talk about that.
With Seattle. Because at some point in time, we can't say that Doug Baldwin's a cute little story anymore when he has as many touchdowns as anybody in the league.
Tyler Lockett, we can't call them cute.
Well, they're not
stories.
cute little players anymore. They're legit.
They're
and
legit.
I know they like that chip on their shoulder, so they're probably, if anybody in Seattle's watching, they're probably mad that I put him in my top 5 because they like being disrespected.
You're ranking them ahead of the Denver Broncos.
I put him over the Denver Broncos because I'm going to get explosive plays with Doug Baldwin and as well as Tyler Lockett, and they're dialed in with their quarterback. And we've talked about it previously. Peyton Manning throwing, hitch routes and stop routes to Demaryius Thomas doesn't get me all that juiced up. I do get excited about broken plays with these guys as well as Russell Wilson winning in the pocket, and I want to finally be the first person to extend some respect to the Seattle Seahawks receiving core. I'll put Doug Baldwin's numbers up against anybody they have in Denver this year.
He is on fire. He has grown into a very, very nice number 1 receiver for the Seattle Seahawks. When I look at Doug from the way that he came into the league to where he is now, he is a terrific route runner, a guy that really sets people up. I kind of call him the king of the gotcha. He has a stutter step at the top of his routes that really puts people to sleep. He's done a great job of expanding. And look, he's putting the ball in the paint. Tyler Lockett is a guy that I loved watching coming out of college. They do have some nice pieces. Not quite enough to get in my top 5, but I acknowledge that they're playing really, really well on the perimeter. I like their pass catchers, just not quite enough to get in my top 5.
All right, who you got then, Buck?
Well, I got Pittsburgh number 1. I think Pittsburgh and what they do, I think they pose so many problems. The fact that the Cleveland Browns double-teamed Antonio Brown on nearly every play. And
they tried under over him, and he didn't work.
He still lit them out with little resistance. I believe they absolutely deserve to be number 1 because he sets the table. But Martavis Bryant and Marcus Wheaton are also capable of going off and having 100-yard days. I like them. My second group, the Washington Redskins.
See, I like that.
Washington
I like you
Redskins,
bold with that one.
Since Deshaun Jackson has been back, I don't think it's a coincidence that Kirk Cousins is lighting it up. Deshaun Jackson stretches the field. He creates opportunities for others. Pierre Garçon is a nice possession receiver. Jordan Reed, you talk about him being the ultimate matchup nightmare, but I believe the young guy, Jamison Crowder, has come in. If not for Tyler Lockett kind of emerging on the scene, I think we really will be talking about Jamison Crowder and what he has done. I liked him at Duke. I likened him to a young Antonio Brown. This guy's going to grow into being a very, very good player. I think Washington is 2. 3 for me, the Arizona Cardinals. You talked about their versatility, the big guys on the outside and inside, Fitzgerald, Michael Floyd. Then you have the speed, J.J. Nelson, John Brown. A lot of problems. 4 for me, the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, we touched on them.
A.J. Green, Marvin Jones, Eifert. They're good. Number 5.
Gronk. You want Gronk. You want to get Gronk in the mix and a bunch of guys that are hobbled.
A one-man show.
Is this a one-man band? Yeah.
He might be the best. He might be the best of all the players that we mentioned in terms of impossible to guard. Big, physical. You know the ball is going to him, but he continues to get it done. Gronkowski is the guy that sets the table. And, look, I know they fell apart against the Miami Dolphins, and they didn't really throw the ball much. But when it comes nut-cutting time, this is the guy that I want. I'm going to let him go. And if I get Edelman back, that's all I need. A nice little 1-2 punch. I like that. Like a double-dip chocolate ice cream.
No. Look, I'm a big Gronk fan. I have no problem with that. They haven't done much down the stretch here, and a lot of that has to do with their offensive line, which has been a major issue for them. But, look, I said it. I know I'll get some heat for putting the Seattle Seahawks over some of these teams, but I'm going to give the Seahawks some respect. All right, we've done the offensive side of the ball. Let's flip over the defensive side of the ball. Let's just kind of lump it all together. We don't need to go through all the positions on the defensive side. Let's just say top 5 defenses. You can rank them 1 to 5 of the 12 teams, and like I mentioned, 11 of the top 12 scoring defenses are in the postseason. So this is a tough one to sort out. Who you got?
It's a tough one to sort out, but I'm going to go with the Seattle Seahawks at number 1. A lot of people talked about the issues and the defensive woes that the Seattle Seahawks had early in the year, but when you look at the numbers, this is a team that's playing just as well as they played the previous 3 or 4 years. Chris Richard has done a great job of understanding what the personnel is. They're back to playing that simple cover 3 scheme. They're able to get pressure up front with Michael Bennett and crew. And then in the back end, I still believe this is the best secondary. And since Jeremy Lane has come back with Sean Shedd, and then you have Richard Sherman and Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor, the Legion of Boom is back, and they're giving people problems. I like the Seattle Seahawks number 1 in that crew.
All right, you got Seahawks number 1. You go Panthers, Broncos, Bengals, Chiefs. The one team you have in here, I'll let you touch on them, number 4, the Cincinnati Bengals. I'll get to my list in a second, but I did not have the Bengals in my top 5. Make your case for the Bengals being number 4, Buck.
Solid. Solid all around. They're solid. They can stop the run. Geno Atkins is inside. You have Carlos Dunlap and those guys being able to rush the passer. They don't blitz a lot. They only blitz on 17% of their snaps, but they're able to keep the ball in front. They get timely turnovers, and they keep you off the end zone. Adam Jones is playing at a lights-out level. Reggie Nelson earned a Pro Bowl berth because he's doing a great job of picking off those errant passes. Marvin Lewis's defense is just playing well as a unit. There's nothing flashy about the way they play. They just get it done. Because of that, I have them at number 4.
Who's their toughest? You put the advanced scouting report together. You kind of identify, okay, you got to worry about this one player. If you're going to identify one player on that Cincinnati defense, Dunlap. I mean, who are you identifying?
Carlos Dunlap, 13.5 sacks. He's tough, but I still think it starts on the inside. Geno Atkins. Yep. Geno Atkins is the guy that is the point on the sword. He is the one that kind of sets the tone. His quickness inside, his ability to disrupt the run and the pass allows the rest of the guys to go. And then I have the menace on the middle, Vontaze Burfict. He's going to maybe get a penalty, but he's going to set the tone with a slobber knocker hit.
By the way, did you see Mauluga pick off the ball at the end of the game and then lateral it? Come
and
on,
look,
Ray.
I'm not saying that they have
Ray.
the greatest football IQ, but for whatever reason, it works. Those guys are all moving in the right direction, playing really good defense. They will be challenged by the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I like how they're playing on defense.
All right, let's go to my list here. There's only one team I have in here that you did not have in there. I mentioned you have the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't. I have the Seattle Seahawks number 1, as did you, Buck. I've got the Denver Broncos and their pass rush and secondary can give people problems number 2. The number 3 team for me, though, is a team you did not have in there, and that's the Houston Texans. And I think the Texans, the way they can heat you up, especially with J.J. Watt with all 10 fingers available to him, that is the toughest person to deal with in the postseason, regular season, any season. He's been the most dominant defensive player in the NFL. And I think in the postseason, you're going to see J.J. get loose. I think he's going to have a big, big game. And the secondary has played very well. This is a very talented defense. That's the one team I had on there that you didn't have on there, Buck. And I had Carolina 4, Kansas City at number 5.
It's hard to argue. Houston was right there. Like if there was a 5B, that's where I had Houston. 8 first-round picks on that defensive lineup. They've done a great job of putting it together. The last half of the season, they've been outstanding. You see J.J. Watt heating up. We talked about this guy probably going back-to-back with the Defensive Player of the Year award, 17.5 sacks, being able to get it done. If they can get Jadeveon Clowney back, get him a little kind of a complimentary player on the outside, Winnie Merciless is playing okay, I like that defense. I just like those other guys better, especially when you think about the Broncos, the rush and coverage being able to work together, and even the Carolina Panthers being able to have a great team defense.
All right, one team on here we didn't talk much about, and we both had them on there, was the Carolina Panthers. And when I go back through and look through their last few games, it wasn't that long ago the New Orleans Saints put up 38 against them. Then they pitch a shutout against Atlanta. Then they come back and they beat the Giants, but they give up 35 points. And then we've seen over the last few weeks, 20 to Atlanta, that's fine. Only give up 10, played dominant against Tampa Bay. But they have had a lot of injuries, Bucky. Your guy, Ben Wickery, gone for the season. Now we find out Peanut Tillman, gone for the season. Roman Harper, who we've talked about, he can get you lined up, Bucky, but he cannot run at safety. Kurt Coleman, who I was there when we picked him in Philadelphia, has had a great year, but he's somebody else at a little bit limited range. Can these linebackers who are unbelievable and this talented front, are they going to be able to cover up some of the issues and concerns in the back end?
They have to cover it up. That front seven is going to have to mask what the deficiencies are in the back end. And we're seeing the deficiencies because now when I look at that team on paper, Josh Norman is the only back end candidate that I'm worried about. Roman Harper, you're looking to get isolated on one-on-one to take your shots. Kurt Coleman has been a good player for them, but he's not necessarily the best guy in coverage. And then when you go outside, now you're having to play Cortland Finnegan. You're having to mix in some younger players because you don't have your starters in the mix. If people can protect them up front, they do have some vulnerable areas in the back end, but I just like the way they play as a group. I think Sean McDermott, the associate head coach Steve Wilkes, has these guys playing very, very well. It's going to be tough for them in the playoffs, but I think their defense is still lights out.
I'm glad you mentioned Steve Wilkes, by the way. You know where he went to school.
Oh, he's a Happy State guy.
Come on, man.
I didn't know that. How
Actually,
about that?
he either coached there or went to school there. Don't look that.
See.
He has something to do with.
Either way, he has some kind of experience.
He's some kind of connected there. All right, we've done the offensive side. We've done the defensive side. What do you say we kick it over to the coaches? And let's look at the coaches, try and rank them 1 through 5 coaches we would want as our guy coming into the postseason. Look at some fancy pictures back here behind us.
How about that?
Pete Carroll with a very serious look on his face. All right, Buck, when I look at this, let's see who's going first here. I'll start us off.
Okay.
I'll go through my guys. Number 1, Bill Belichick.
Oh, number 1. He's taking number 1?
Yeah. He's got the hardware for a week-to-week basis to be able to prepare and install a game plan for an opponent. That one's easy for me. Pete Carroll, number 2, who had his a nice duel with Bill Belichick last year in the Super Bowl. We know how that ended. But I would go with Pete, number 2. Bruce Arians, despite limited experience as a head coach, just something about him, I'm in. Whatever he's selling, I'm buying. I'll have him at number 3, even over Mike Tomlin with the Super Bowl experience. And then I'll have Kansas City and Andy Reid, who I was around, who I have great faith in, at number 5. That would round out my list.
I think in class you were looking over my shoulder because I feel like you were taking my notes.
What did you come with? Did you mirror me?
I believe 1, 2, and 3 we're exactly alike.
I thought I was going on a limb with Bruce Arians.
Bruce Arians, look, I love the swagger. I love the confidence. I love what he's done in Arizona. He's done a great job of making them a bully in the West. I like that. Tomlin, I had at 5. You have him at 4. I like that. But I feel like
who'd you throw
I just
in there?
feel like you've been so disrespectful to Ron Rivera. The Carolina Panthers are
Ron Rivera in there?
15-1.
Riverboat Ron?
15-1.
This is the postseason now.
He can't even get on the list.
It's the postseason now. Who are you going to knock off? What's Andy Reid's postseason experience level versus what Ron Rivera is?
I like Andy Reid, but
you already said who would you have? So you have him at number.
I have him at 4.
You have him at 4.
I have him at 4.
Who's your 5?
Mike Tomlin. So I would leave out Andy Reid.
So you put Ron Rivera over Mike Tomlin.
I did.
Wow. You know Ron Rivera didn't coach the '85 Bears, right? He was a member of the team.
Yeah, but I also know he's 15-1 right now too.
Okay, well that's the regular season. Mike Tomlin's had some high win total seasons too. He's also won some Super Bowls.
I mean,
the whole point of the discussion was like, who do you want in the postseason, Buck?
Yeah, I got it. Ron Rivera. I want him in the postseason. You know, he's won some games. And
I know you're going Riverboat Ron.
Yeah, I'm going Riverboat Ron.
All right,
over Andy Reid.
That's good. I think
the only guy we left out Andy Reid, and Andy Reid is one of my guys. But I mean, there've been a lot of heartbreaking losses in Philadelphia with Andy Reid.
There's Super Bowl appearance, and there's been a lot of conference championship appearances.
Appearances, not wins. Appearances.
Well, Ron Rivera, how many?
I mean, he's only been there for a little bit.
Anything?
Yeah. I mean, we are the Bears shuffling through. Like, I'm sure they're going to have.
I think you've gone so hard on the Carolina Panthers in some other segments we've done that you're trying to curry favor.
You think I'm being light on this?
I think you went home for the holidays, and I think you got some heat. I think you got some heat from some friends and family back there, and this is your way of trying to make it up.
I have them 4. I don't have them number 1. I have them 4. Look. The last season and a half, their record is ridiculous. Like, since December last year, I think they've only lost 1 game.
Look, I like Ron Rivera. I'm just saying he's not in my top 5 for this playoff.
Yeah, it's okay.
We agree to disagree.
It's okay to be wrong.
But while we're speaking about coaches, I think it's time to bring in our coach, Brian Billick. All right, Bucky, it's time to bring in Coach Billick. We love doing it each and every week. Coach, we're not going to call this our Black Monday show because, well, first of all, a lot of these coaches got removed on Sunday. Are you astonished at just how much turnover we're seeing now in the National Football League, or is this the way it's always been?
Well, I thought you were calling me in to tell me you were going in a different direction. I know how that works. No, I think we've seen a trend of it clearly when it comes to, it seems like more firings during the course of the season, the more firings of coordinators. And now, I mean, you see a Chip Kelly go a Tuesday before the final game. We're seeing now coaches fired literally right after the game by way of a Mike Pettin. So, teams, they're making a decision quick. So much for we're going to sit down and talk about it and discuss it and kind of go forward. Obviously, as was the case before, those decisions were made before. So, what the heck? Pull the Band-Aid off quick and move forward.
You know, Coach, one common thing that shows up in these vacancies or these failed relationships are the discord between the general manager and the head coach. You had a lot of success in Baltimore. You won a Super Bowl. Talk about the importance of the GM and the head coach seeing football through the same prism.
It's important to the degree that you still have the room to disagree. You're not going – if you see everything exactly the same way, then you're probably wrong. You probably don't have a big enough view. One of the most important relationships – it's like a marriage, right? There's got to be some give and take. You're counting on that check and balance. So it doesn't have to be absolutely in lockstep. And it's okay if you dog cuss each other a little bit, right, DJ? We used to call it scrimmaging. and as long as you can lock arms and have a beer when you're all said and done, you say your piece, I'll say my piece, and we'll come to a common ground as to the way we want to go forward. But it is vital. If you don't have that, because when you are tested, and we're seeing it tested with a number of organizations now, then it starts to split. You wanted this, no, you wanted that. We need to go that way, we need to go this way. I remember in my interview with Ozzie Newsome when I took the Baltimore job, and Ozzie asked me, he said, well, if we disagree, how are we going to resolve it? Or how are we going to compromise? And I said, Ozzie, I won't compromise at all. And he said, oh, so you're saying it's got to be your way? I go, no. You'll either convince me or I'll convince you. Because if we ever get to the point where we have to go to ownership and say, we disagree, you settle it, they ought to fire us both. Mm-hmm. So, and that was the strength of working with Ozzie Newsome. He would be willing to view it from your perspective. And he had an appreciation from the coaching perspective and the demands that I had on me. And likewise, I had to respect the demands that were on him. And then you're able to work it. So, and we're in the process now. We always hear the debate. Well, can you hire the coach before you hire the GM, or the GM before the coach? I don't know that it matters if you're piecing them together. It depends on the structure you want, who answers to whom, what that is. But it clearly is changing. It has become a GM's league to a degree. And it's interesting how they're trying to piece this together. And as we talked about before we got started, because it's become more of a GM's league, we're seeing more and more GMs firing. They're being held. Used to be the coach's purview to go through that. I remember Ozzie used to say, well, that's why you make so much money. We call it comeback pay because you're the one out
taking
front,
the risk.
You're the one. Yeah, you're only the one taking the hit. But now, because it has become somewhat of a GM's league, we're seeing more and more of them falling in a Black Monday environment as well.
Yeah, Coach. To me, I think the key when you look at it is decisions need to be made and say they're our decision. This is what we chose. You might not agree with it, but you've come together and then it's our decision. It seems like you see after these things happen and guys get fired, you hear, okay, well, I didn't want to draft that guy, but I would never have cut him. And it's kind of they're all disagreeing. Look, these need to be group decisions for it to be successful. But Coach, as we sit here right now, let's see, it's a little after 10 a.m. Pacific on Monday. We don't have, there's going to be more of these openings that are going to come throughout the day, I'm sure. But obviously we know about Philadelphia, Cleveland, San Francisco, among some others. Still waiting to hear on some other potential openings. Going to be a lot more than
Tennessee
just
and Miami,
that.
you assume are going to change.
Yeah, exactly. Tennessee, Miami. When you look at what's out there right now, what even could potentially be out there, we'll see what happens if Tom Coughlin decides he wants to walk away, and the other, Indianapolis potentially. What would look to you like the most attractive opening?
Well, every NFL job is just right. And by that I mean if we're any worse, you wouldn't take it, or if it were any better, it wouldn't be available. To me, you basically break into two categories of teams that, and this is a very binary league. You're either in the playoffs or you're not. You either have a quarterback or you don't. And if you're out of the playoffs and you don't have a quarterback, you're probably going to be one of these teams that's looking for a coach as well. So I kind of put them in those categories. Those teams that could have coaching changes that have an existing quarterback, and we've got a bunch of them, whether it's Matthew Stafford in Detroit, Eli Manning in New York. Obviously, you're talking about the ultimate in Andrew Luck
yeah,
in Indianapolis. These are going to be very attractive jobs if indeed they come open. You talk about the ones we know for sure. Cleveland, every job's a good job in the NFL. Going to be a tough go, not only with the way they're trying to piece it together, but you've got to address the quarterback situation. San Francisco the same way. Philly, that's okay. Do you have a – is Sam Bradford a guy that you can put together with DeMarco Murray in the right offense and still be productive? So it is very much tied to that from a coaching perspective, what's the most attractive job? You better believe that if indeed Sean Payton comes out, he's going to go to a job with an existing quarterback, because that's the job that's going to be attractive to him compared to maybe even staying in New Orleans where a Drew Brees may be on the out.
Coach, when you have player free agents and they come to the building, a lot of times you say, okay, we like this guy. We've got him in our building on a visit. Don't let him leave. We got to get him signed before he leaves. Is it the same thing on the coaching front where you might have a coach come in for an interview and he's got 4 or 5 more interviews lined up, and then inside the organization, or maybe as a coach you felt the pressure for them to say, hey, they want to get this done right now, not let me go on these other interviews?
Yeah, it is competitive, and it depends on what kind of work you have going into it and where are you in the process. A lot of times the interview is just a formality. You want to hire the guy. You've done your homework. You know this is going to fit. If the interview is obviously a legitimate, well, we want to hear from this guy, chances are it's hard to imagine in those situations, very rarely is the guy going to wow you to the point where you're not even going to look at the other candidates. And it does become competitive. I remember when I was interviewing for both the Cleveland and the Baltimore jobs. Because of the way the new rules were then, I had a chance to interview with Cleveland, but I did not with Baltimore. But I promised Art Modell and Ozzie Newsome that I would interview face-to-face with them and give them an opportunity before I made a decision. Well, Cleveland put the big press on and said, take the job now, and threw a bunch of money at me. And I said, I don't know that I'm not going to take the Cleveland job, but I promised these guys that I would visit with them face-to-face first. And you did that at a risk, because the minute I did that, then Cleveland had to backtrack and say, okay, no, we didn't really offer you the job, which was a bold-faced lie, because they didn't want to have the perception that I was turning down them for Baltimore. So yeah, there's a lot of gamesmanship in this.
Coach, in thinking about the job, like I've heard this from guys who interviewed last year. They say with ownership, not only do you come in and interview yourself, but they want to know who are you bringing with you. And there may be some disagreement in terms of who you say is your dream offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator. How important is it to kind of have all your ducks in a row when it comes to this is the staff that I want to put together so we can get it done?
It's huge. It's probably the number one thing because they're gonna make assumptions about you as a head coach. And this is gonna sound terrible, but quite frankly, in a lot of those interviews, they don't even know what to ask in terms of identifying what it really takes because they don't have that reference frame. They've never been a head coach in this league. Maybe they've never been in coaching. You look at the Cleveland job and the way they're piecing together that search committee. Who's going to ask the questions? Who has that reference frame of what it actually takes to win this league from a coaching and a personnel standpoint? So probably the biggest single question is going to be what kind of staff are you going to put together? Now, this is where it gets a little dicey too. And this is where you've got to have the courage of your conviction. First, you have to make sure that you visited and you know these guys that you're going to put out there because there's going to be other coaches that interview that may put those names out there as well. And if the interviewees follow up with a top coordinator, a defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, and they don't have a sense of they'll come with you or you haven't had that conversation, you have to have a firm idea that these guys will actually go with you. You have to show that you have a depth and an understanding across the board, not just your coordinators, but the makeup of the staff, the diversity of the staff. You can't have all being the same guys. And so that is a huge part of it. And you have to show the conviction, in my opinion, that maybe they have a previous history with somebody you want to hire, and that's a negative. If you believe in that guy, you got to stick to it. Otherwise, it becomes very apparent that you're pandering to, oh, you don't like this guy? Okay, I'll hire someone else. Well, wait a minute. If you're going to be the head coach, you need to be the final authority on the staff you're going to put together. If you're going to bail on that on the first time someone says, well, wait a minute, I don't like this guy, maybe you shouldn't be a head coach.
Coach, that's fascinating points. I love the fact, too, about, making sure you really have a commitment or at least have had the conversation with some of those assistant coaches because I talk to buddies around the league all the time with all these openings and, moving chess pieces. And I can't tell you how many times I've talked to somebody and they said, oh, yeah, I've got this guy's going to come as my defensive coordinator. This guy's going to be my receivers coach. Hang up with him 10 minutes later, a different guy call, yeah, if I get a job, this guy's coming my defensive coordinator. This guy, I'm like, man, how many jobs is this guy going to go take? But I think –
their existing club won't let them out.
Yeah, exactly. If they're under contract and they're not going to get a head job, they can't even get out of that deal to begin with. But that, to me, this is my final question for you, Coach, is when you get a job as a head coach, does it make more sense? To me, it seems to make sense. But you're in a year where there's a lot of turnover, where you could have, say there's 7 or 8 openings. Well, that means that the pool of assistant coaches is going to be larger. So does it become, I think we talked about the Black Monday turning into Black Sunday. Is it kind of almost an arms race of, okay, we got to rush to get our head coach hired so we can go get all these top assistants before all these other guys start coming in line?
Yeah, you would think so, although, and that's the conventional thinking, and that's where some of the frustration is. Let's go. Why do these things drag out? Because, okay, that's fine if you're going to wait for a guy, but now you're missing an opportunity to put the staff together that you want. The fact of the matter is, and we just alluded to it, a lot of these guys are on the way it's structured in the NFL right now. You're not going to get as many guys out as you think. You have a lot of guys, oh, I want to come with you. I want to come with you in this capacity, in that capacity. If for no other reason, maybe they're just getting out of town early because the situation they're in is not that good. Or more importantly, what it is, it's usually a better payday because your staff is never paid better than the opening day that you hire them. After that, you're constantly trying to catch up because each year the salaries keep going up. But as we now see, and we coaches are the problem. It used to be you could hire just about anybody you wanted, and then we started putting titles out there. Okay, it has to be an advancement. It has to be a promotion. So, it has to be from a position coach to a coordinator. Well, now we started throwing around titles. This guy's the offensive coordinator in charge of the running game. This is the assistant head coach in charge of whatever, throwing titles around. Finally, the league just said, forget it. We're going to put a cap on it, and the team has to release a guy to go. So we've been our own worst enemy in that regard. And so when you put a staff together, for the most part, it's going to be, to a degree, guys that are out of work. More and more you're going to bring up college guys, which is a good thing because good, young, fresh coaching talent that can teach is important. But getting your top coordinators in place, unless it's a guy that's being let go, it's dicey. And so I don't know that, yes, common sense would say hire a guy now so I can put that staff together right now. Chances are there's a lot of guys on that staff that are with existing staffs that are in the playoffs you can't touch anyway. So, yeah, you probably have a little more time than even I would have thought of a few years ago, thinking, hey, let's go. Let's get this decision so I can put a staff together. Good
points, Coach. And by the way, before I let you go, make sure we get everybody out there that's listening or watching, check out Coach's article that's coming up. You're going to be talking about this very subject here, the most attractive coaching vacancies. When can people expect to find that on NFL.com, Coach?
Yeah, we'll see that typically on Wednesday, NFL.com. It's that time of year. It's amazing. We're not even talking about the games right now, are we? It's the subseason.
I know. We'll get to that. We're going to get to that. I promise next week we'll be done with all this stuff, and we'll be recapping hopefully a great week of playoff football, Coach. Thanks again, as you do each and every week, for joining us here on Move the Sticks.
Guys. Sounds good.
Before we get out of here, though, I tweeted to you, I don't know if you'd seen it, that we both went on bowl swings, right? So we both went out to a bunch of bowl games, all hopscotching all over the country. I had a true, like, planes, trains, and automobiles type travel day. And I know you did too.
Yes.
Because we're both going through Atlanta.
Yes.
So I'm at a bowl game, Texas Tech and LSU. By the way, Leonard Fournette, very good. I'm at that game. So that game, I don't get back to my hotel till after midnight. My flight is supposed to leave at 6 a.m. We're actually going to be going to the same game. We're going to go see Paxton Lynch and the Memphis quarterback.
At the Birmingham Bowl.
In Birmingham. So you, I believe, are in Orlando, and you're going to be connected through Atlanta. So I'll get through my story. I'll get to yours. So I get to the airport. I sleep for 2 hours. Mm-hmm. I get to the airport for a 6 o'clock flight. It's delayed.
Yeah.
So, get on the plane, and then they said, okay, it might be an hour delay. You can get off. So I get off the plane. I'm on the flight with Mike McCagnon, the general manager of the New York Jets, and then Joe Douglas, who's the college scouting director of the Chicago Bears. We're just trying to get to this game. So get off the plane for an hour, and then it just keeps delaying and delaying and delaying. So long story short, we end up getting back on the plane after 2.5 hours. It's been ridiculous. So we wait on the runway then because there's lightning. So we waited almost another hour. Get into Atlanta. We've missed our connection to get into Birmingham. We sprint. The three of us are sprinting to another gate to try and get on so that we can get there. We're going to hopefully get there by halftime. We go on standby. They luckily get us on, so we end up getting in there. We land in Birmingham. Now it's, we've already missed the whole first half, but we haven't eaten anything because we got to the airport so dang early. We didn't have time to eat anything. So Joe Douglas with the Bears is like, you guys go get – I won't get a rental car. You guys go get your rental cars. I'll pick up some Chick-fil-A in the airport. So I go get in my rental car. I swing around in the front of the airport. He jumps in. He's got bags of Chick-fil-A. We're woofing the food down. Get to the stadium in Birmingham, and it's rain like crazy.
Yes.
And this stadium is, apologies to people in Birmingham, it's a dump.
Yeah.
And there's just dirt lots. You have to pay because it's already past halftime. I park in this. I have this little tiny white rental car, little car. And so I'm driving through the mud, and Joe Douglas was like, don't stop, dude. If you stop, this thing's getting stuck. Just do not stop. So I keep rolling. So finally I find a place to park, and we're like tiptoeing around. Well, he's got his bag because he's going to be going to another bowl game. He's going to the Music City Bowl that night with a scout that's at the game that's going to drive him from there. So he's got his bag. Mike McCagnon is gone. He's got his bag. I've got no bag because I just take my notes on my phone. We get up to the stadium. The will call is shut down. They're already gone.
Yeah.
So they won't let us in. We're like, well, we're on the list. The press passes, they're upstairs. We can just they won't let us in. Fortunately, Mike McCagnon has a ticket. So he had a ticket to the game. He's like, look, I can't get in because I have a bag, so you just take my ticket. So I take the ticket. They ended up getting a hold of somebody up in the press box, ended up getting them up. But I ended up going down, got into the stadium with 3 minutes to go in the third quarter.
That's okay.
And sat there. The good thing was I sat there on the sideline and watched the rest of the game. Got a chance to watch the quarterback. We'll get into him as we get into more draft stuff going forward. But it was. I got back to my car and it looked like a brown car. It was just mud over the whole thing.
It's funny because we were going to the same game. We were going to the Birmingham Bowl to see Paxton Lynch. It's important to see quarterbacks live so you can get a true sense of not only their physical tools, but how they interact with their teammates, because you can't necessarily glean all that from watching it on TV. So I had the same plan. I went to the Russell Athletic Bowl the night before. I saw Baylor run through my poor little Tar Heels.
Man, they ran down their throats.
I mean,
600 plus.
Running Wildcat. Like, I mean, I can't tell you, just like, look, I'm in the press box, and they tell you in the press box.
No cheering.
No cheering. But they don't say anything about stomping and throwing soda cans across the thing.
Groaning?
That's groaning, moaning, walking out, kicking cans. That's what I was doing, watching my Tar Heels get done. So I get back to the room around 12:30, 1 o'clock. I have an early flight as well. I think my flight is at 7:15, so I had to leave the hotel at 6. Get there, it's on a delay. And I'm like, okay, well, it's fine. It is only a 3-hour delay. So we touched down in Atlanta, and I'm like, I'm not going to make this game.
No.
I'm not going to make it. So I call our boss. I'm like, look, I'm not going to make the game. So I go to the Sky Club, the Delta Sky Club.
Hey, nicely done.
I post up.
Get some
right in front.
Some warm nuts in there?
Yeah, some warm nuts, a little Pellegrino. And I'm sitting there watching Paxton Lynch play on the TV at the bar. And I write as I'm watching
that's
that
good
thing.
work.
So I did a little TV scouting.
I
did a little TV scouting.
You probably had like an executive from Nabisco sitting on the left. Probably had some trial lawyer sitting on your right, and you're sitting there banging out your
and
notes.
Everyone's looking over your shoulder like,
what? You were typing. What are you
doing? Nothing. Don't worry about it.
Oh, that is fantastic.
So that's my travel story.
All right, TD, you always ask for us for some travel and some scouting stories, so there you go.
You want the life.
A whole lot of name dropping.
That's the life.
And Chick-fil-A love.
It was good Chick-fil-A, though. I was so hungry.
Chick-fil-A, you can't go wrong.
Number one.
Can't go wrong.
Plus, you're in the South. Number one.
It is the New Year, though, and my New Year resolution is no fast food, and Chick-fil-A is like the one.
I don't.
We don't count.
We don't count.
I know, right? That's
your
where I'm
thing.
at. Should I go Chick-fil-A as fast food or no?
No, that doesn't count. Don't do that to yourself.
Your thing is that. So I was in Atlanta
Decided.
for the Peach Bowl. The Peach Bowl is sponsored by Chick-fil-A. But my thing in Atlanta, I have to hit the Waffle House. There are two things. When I'm in the South, I have to hit the Waffle House and Cracker Barrel. And I will hit them in back-to-back meals. So if I go to breakfast at Waffle House, I'm going to lunch at Cracker Barrel, but I'm going to have breakfast again at lunchtime. So when I'm in the South, and I can't wait, like I think even when we go to Mobile for the Senior Bowl, I'm going to make sure that I find my Southern delicacies to make sure that I kind of feed the beast.
Oh, that's fantastic. All right, well that's a good way to wrap us up. Well, it's kind of
maybe we can get a sponsor. Maybe Waffle House or Cracker Barrel or throw a little.
Yeah, come on in.
We'll eat biscuits in the marquee.
We'll eat biscuits and gravy on air if that's what we got to do to get sponsored on here. We'll do it. Well, Bucky, look, we covered a lot of ground today, looking at kind of ranking these playoff teams and by position. Got a great visit with Coach Billick talking about these coaching changes, and we mixed in some Cracker Barrel and Waffle House. I think we touched all our bases.
Chick-fil-A too.
Yeah, a little Chick-fil-A as well. We appreciate you guys checking us out. Be sure to check us out each and every week here on Move the Sticks, NFL.com/podcast or YouTube.com/NFL.
Thanks for downloading Move the Sticks with Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks. For more, go to NFL.com/podcasts.